What's up? This is Boxingwave. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We're still in the aftermath of the Froch-Groves Carl Froch rematch. All right, Froch knocks him out, 8th round. He got all the validation that he needed. All right, we did need to see a rematch because of the first fight. There was a premature stoppage, and the fight was very competitive. Okay, so now that the rematch is over, who is the true king of the super middleweight division? Who is the true king? Is it Andre Ward or is it Carl Froch? We know those are the two best guys in the super middleweight division. We know that Andre Ward already beat Carl Froch back in 2011. But who is the true king? Okay. The reason why this is a debate is because Andre Ward has not been as active as Carl Froch. Nowhere near as active. All right. He had shoulder surgery back before he fought Edwin Rodriguez after coming off of the win against Chad Dawson. And now he's having contract issues. He's trying to get out of his contract with his promoter. And that might take over a year, before that is over with. And right now he's not even in discussion of fighting anyone. People bring him up to fight Froch again. Now that Froch won, people are bringing Andre Ward up, but Andre Ward is not fighting right now because he's trying to deal with his contract issues. Okay, so who's the true king? Because Carl Froch is very active this late in his career. All right. First thing I want to do is I'm just gonna go down. I have my iPad here. I'm just gonna go back down on the recent fights of both fighters. All right. I'm gonna start off with Carl Froch. I'm gonna go back to 2008. Okay. Start off with John Pascal. All right. He beats John Pascal, undefeated John Pascal. All right. He beats Jermaine Taylor. All right. Knocks him out late. Okay. He beats Andre Durrell. All right. I didn't think he won that fight, but he won. Okay. He lost to Mikhail Kessler. All right. This was his first loss. All right. But we see later that he goes to avenge that loss. He beats Arthur Abraham, another big name, another top 5 guy up in the super middleweight division. Glenn Johnson, he beats him. Legend, Hall of Famer, probably future Hall of Famer. Andre Ward, he lost. Okay, clear and convincingly, he lost to Andre Ward. All right. Lucien Boutte, he beat an undefeated Lucien Boutte. All right. He beat Youssef Mack after that, not a big deal. But, a solid fighter. He avenged his loss against Mikhail Kessler in the rematch. He beats Mikhail Kessler convincingly. And he beats Froch-Groves twice. All right. A lot of big names on there, okay? Other than a loss to Andre Ward, he's pretty much cleared the division. All right. I know he's a unified champ. I think he's the WBC and the IBF title holder, I believe. I think Andre Ward is a WBO title holder, but this video is not about belts. This is about who is the true king. All right. Now, Andre Ward. Let me go down his record. Okay. I'm gonna start off 09 where he beat Edison Miranda. That's a notable fight. Edison Miranda. I don't know. I can't really say if he was past his prime. I guess by then he's a little past his prime, but he was still kind of active back then. Shelby Pudwill. All right, I don't know too much about that fight. I didn't see that fight. He beat Mikhail Kessler. He beat Alan Green. Okay. He beat Sakio Bika. Beat Arthur Abraham. He beat Carl Froch. All right. After that. And then he went to fight Chad Dawson. Chad Dawson came down from the light heavyweight division. He knocks Chad Dawson out in the 10th round. And then he had his most recent fight back in November against Edwin Rodriguez, undefeated Edwin Rodriguez. Now, let's compare resumes here, okay, a little bit. How can I start by saying that? Carl Froch obviously has been in a lot more fights, all right? Both fighters are notable opponents. I wouldn't say either one has fought better people, but Carl Froch fought more people, and he's usually fighting good top people. Top fighters. I mean, a lot of these fighters, they both fought the same guys. Um, a lot of these fighters. The thing is, Andre Ward, the Edwin Rodriguez fight. Let me just bring that fight up. His last fight. Right. He came from a long layoff in that fight. He was out for 14 months before he fought Edwin, right? The thing about the Edwin Rodriguez fight, I can't really say he's a top fighter because he has yet to fight since he lost to Andre Ward, and he doesn't even have a fight scheduled. Okay, so we Edwin Rodriguez, he didn't really fight anyone. He's undefeated, but he's still kind of unproven, and he lost to Andre Ward pretty clearly. And he has yet to fight anyone. So we really don't know how good of a win that is for Andre Ward, even though he was undefeated. We don't know how good of a win. We don't know how good Edwin Rodriguez will ever be in the sport. Unlike a lot of the other guys that Carl Froch beat, even though Ward beat the same people, a lot of the same people, they're still around. Where Edwin Rodriguez doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm only bringing up this fight because it's a recent fight. Carl Froch beat John Pascal when he was undefeated, and John Pascal is very, very active. He's actually one of the top light heavyweights out there. Okay, he just beat Lucian Bute, who is already beaten by Carl Froch, but still, I mean, he's still having a good career. He's solid fired. Then you had the Chad Dawson fight. A lot of people complain about that fight because Chad Dawson might have been weight drained in that fight. I mean, listen, you signed a contract, you agreed to get into a fight. So I'm not going to take any fight away from Andre Ward. But the thing is, his most notable, most impressive fight was Carl Froch. And that was back in 2011. That's almost 3 years ago now. Ward really hasn't done much since then, but Ward will always be in most people's top 2, top 3 pound for pound list because of the fact that he can beat all of the other guys that's on the pound for pound. Well, a lot of people believe pound for pound he is more talented than these other guys. But Carl Froch is actually fighting and beating guys. He's actually getting in the ring. There's no injuries. There's no contract situations with Carl Froch. He's getting in there and beating young fighters like George Groves, who was undefeated. A guy that's coming up, that has skills. And he avenged his loss against Mikkel Kessler, who a lot of people think, someone was telling me the other day that they don't think James DeGale deserves a shot at Froch. DeGale hasn't really fought anyone other than George Groves, and a lot of people don't feel Gonzalez was a worthy opponent. I mean, I think he was. But a lot of people feel that guys like Mikkel Kessler deserve their shot at Froch over guys like James DeGale, which is a pretty valid argument. I mean, I would rather see the DeGale fight, but that's my personal opinion. Mikkel Kessler has put in more work, has been around longer, and he's beaten Carl Froch before. Okay, he actually gave Carl Froch his first loss. And I mean, even with Carl Froch lost to Andre Ward, he has beaten Lucian Bute, who was undefeated, a guy that a lot of people wanted to see Ward fight. Okay, he's beaten. He avenged his loss of Mikkel Kessler. He's beaten George Groves twice. Okay. He's done that since the Andre Ward fight, whereas Ward has only fought Edwin Rodriguez and Chad Dawson. 2 fights where, I mean, Chad Dawson fight it is impressive because it's Chad Dawson. Whether he was weight trained, if you want to make the argument, fine. But Edwin Rodriguez, not really big of a win. So, who is the true king? All right, that's what I'm going to leave with you guys. All right, who's the true king? If they were to have a rematch, Carl Froch and Andre Ward, I think there's no doubt in my mind that Andre Ward will win the fight. Okay, I just don't think Carl Froch has the skills to beat Andre Ward. Period. All right, but if they don't fight and Andre Ward is out for another year and a half, Carl Froch could have another 2 fights by then. Okay, whether it's DeGale, whether it's Chavez Jr., whether it's whoever, Sakio Bika is, it's another guy a lot of people feel deserves a match before James DeGale. Whatever. What if he beats the next 2 guys? Um, People are going to still place Andre Ward in the top 3 because a lot of people feel that he has the talent to beat all of these other fighters. And I listen, I put him there all the time. But this is the issue here. He's not fighting. And I know he wants to get out of his contract, The thing with Andre Ward, when you watch his interviews and you listen to him, he has this... He somewhat thinks he's a bigger star than he actually is. All right? We know he's talented. All right? It's a given. He's very talented. But does he really belong in the top 3 if he's not fighting anymore? If he's not fighting, how do you keep placing him? Listen, this is not my thoughts. I'm just giving you the thoughts. A lot of people feel this way, okay? And it makes sense. I can't argue with them, If he's not fighting anyone, why are you putting him in the top 3? Why do I put him in the top 3? I just think he's that talented. But you can make the argument. Not only that, but Andre Ward thinks he deserves more than what he actually... And I would like to see Andre Ward get paid. But you have to fight, You might be as talented as Mayweather, but Mayweather is getting millions where, or a lot of fighters that's not as talented as you or doesn't have the wins you have are getting paid more than you because they have the bigger name. But sometimes I feel like Andre Ward thinks he's bigger than what he is because of where people place him in the pound for pound list. He sees all these pound for pound lists. People always place him as number 2. All right, it's been like that since the Super 6 tournament. It's like been 4 years or so since then. All right, you're talented, but you're not fighting. I know you had your injury. I know that's not your fault. I know the contract situation. But if you're not fighting, why do you deserve to be ahead of Carl Froch? Why? This is the question I'm asking you guys. I want to hear you guys' opinions on this. Sometimes I do think Ward is getting a little big-headed about the whole pound for pound list thing. Whereas there's fighters like Carl Froch, Chavez Jr., the bigger names, you might have beaten. We know you would destroy Chavez Jr. All right, we know you beaten Carl Froch before. Okay, that's fine. But Carl Froch is putting in work that you're not putting in for whatever reason, whether it's injuries, contracts, whatever. Still not putting in the work. It's still not, you're not fighting. So let me know what you guys think. Who is the true king at 168? All right, who is it? Is it Ward or is it Froch? All right, let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna read your comments. All right, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, and always hit me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter every day, so hit me on Twitter too if you want to discuss this on Twitter. All right, peace.